Hey everyone, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is our daily show giving you all the latest news from the world of movies with insight into what it all means. Joining me as always is AMC's Editor-in-Chief, John Campea.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Hello, Ashley. I'm really tired.
Hungover?
I'm really tired. Not hungover, but tired. I spent the last 42 hours in Vegas for the National Association of Broadcasters, a big conference they have there, and it was a lot of fun. And I may have played a little bit of poker, and I got sick yesterday morning, but I'm back. Hi. Okay.
At least you won at poker, right?
I did. I won some money in poker, which is always good.
The first official trailer for the new film Elysium has been released. The movie opens in AMC theaters everywhere on August 9th and stars Matt Damon, Jodie Foster, and Sharlto Copley. John, you had a chance to look at the trailer. What'd you think?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And, I've had a little bit of apprehension about Elysium. Now, granted, just because you make a good trailer doesn't mean a movie's good. I always talk about this. The Phantom Menace, maybe the best trailer of all time. The Phantom Menace trailer is amazing. And we all saw how crappy that movie turned out. So we're not talking about the movie, we're just talking about the trailer. But the trailer is excellent. Now, I guess the guy, for those of you who don't know, Elysium is being directed by Neil Blomkamp, who directed District 9. And what you may not know is that before he did District 9, he was the original guy who was supposed to direct the Halo movie. He was handpicked by Peter Jackson before he had done anything to do a Halo movie. And I was against it. I was against Blomkamp directing Halo. I didn't think a guy's first film should be like a $250 million big, huge studio tentpole project. And of course, the studios were, nervous about it. And I think they did the right thing by pulling the plug on Halo. And then Neil Blomkamp went ahead and did his own movie for a story that he had written, because District 9 was based on a short film that he had done. And he did a great job with it, really allowed him to grow and develop as a director, to get his feet wet in a big Hollywood film. Now he's doing Elysium with a huge cast. Of course, Sharlto Copley was the star of District 9, so he has worked with Neil Blomkamp already. And Copley looks amazing in this trailer as the villain. He looks so badass. And if you saw him playing Face in the A-Team, you think, how can this guy be a badass? Watch this trailer for Elysium. He looks like a badass. Damon looks great. Jodie Foster looks great. The story seems really compelling. It feels an awful lot like District 9 from the trailer, which I hope it doesn't feel just like a carbon copy of District 9. But I'm telling you, this trailer looks fantastic. I'm super pumped for it. AMC theaters in August. Plan on seeing it. It looks wonderful.
Academy Award-winning actress Anne Hathaway joined the Christopher Nolan family in The Dark Knight Rises, and it appears she's going back for seconds. Reports have come out that Hathaway has joined Nolan's new film, Interstellar, which will also star Matthew McConaughey. John, what do you think of Hathaway joining Interstellar?
Number one, not surprised. Christopher Nolan has already proved, and it seems like a lot of the great directors do this, Christopher Nolan has already proved over and over and over again that he really likes to work with actors he's already has experience with. He's worked with Christian Bale a lot, not just on the Batman movies, but also in The Prestige. I think Michael Caine has been in almost all of his movies. He's used Joseph Gordon-Levitt in several films. And now he's got a taste of Anne Hathaway, and he wants some more. And who can blame him? Look, Anne Hathaway in Les Miserables this year, I think she not only was the best supporting actress this year, I think she turned in the best overall performance of any category this year. So we've all known for a long time that she's a dynamic, wonderful, gifted, future of Hollywood type of actress. And it just it's now crescendoing with how good she is. And look, she's joining Matthew McConaughey. And I've said it on this show before, I'll say it again. A lot of people out there, they mistake an actor being in a bad movie as that means the actor's a bad actor. Look, if you don't think Matthew McConaughey is a world-class actor, you simply don't know what you're talking about. So just stop. Just stop. You don't know what you're talking about, so I'm not going to listen to you. McConaughey is a fantastic actor, and it all depends on having good material, the right director, stuff like that, as with most actors, but he's phenomenal. Christopher Nolan sees it and put him in there. I thought that was a great move by him. So I'm really excited to see Hathaway and McConaughey play together. I like what we're hearing from Interstellar, which is almost nothing, but the concepts that we've heard for the movie have been great. Christopher Nolan hasn't made a bad film yet. Dark Knight Rises is my least favorite of the Christopher Nolan films, but aside from that, all of them have been awesome. Insomnia is a hugely underrated film. If you haven't seen Christopher Nolan's film Insomnia, go and see it. But The Prestige and all of them, they're all great, and I don't think there's any reason to think this one is going to be any different. Well, listen, folks, we've come to that part of the show for buy or sell. So here's what's going to happen. Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news in front of her. She's going to list them off, and I'm simply going to tell you whether I buy it or sell it. So, Ashley, what do we got?
Jim Carrey has signed on to play the title role in the upcoming Ricky Stanicky film. The story follows 3 teens who pull a prank by burning down a house in their neighborhood. These kids create a fake person to take the blame, Ricky Stanicky, and 20 years later are still using the alibi to get out of every uncomfortable situation. When their wives finally force them to set up a meeting with Stanicky, they hire an actor to inhabit the personality. The film has already been in development for a few years with both James Franco and Joaquin Phoenix playing the lead role at different times before dropping out. John, buy or sell Jim Carrey and Ricky Stanicky?
This sounds awesome. I
does.
buy this. I mean, this sounds wonderful to me, actually. Just for Kate, take Jim Carrey out of it for a second. Just the concept sounds like it could be a lot of fun. James Franco, Joaquin Phoenix, all would have been great. Jim Carrey right now, though, is enjoying a resurgence. I was not completely thrilled with The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. I liked it, but Jim Carrey was great in it, and it felt like the old Jim Carrey. Looking at the trailers now for Kick-Ass 2 and seeing all the stuff he's doing as Colonel Stars and Stripes, he looks great in it. And he looks like he's breathing a lot of life into that character. We'll know better once we actually have a chance to see the movie. But when I hear this concept, if I knew nothing else and you just pitched me the concept and you asked me who could you see playing this role, I instantly would have said Jim Carrey. So this type of a fit is great, and hopefully, fingers crossed, all this will snowball into Dumb and Dumber 2, which is really what we're all waiting for. That's the one we want to see. But I love seeing Jim Carrey getting back to his roots, doing what he's done best for so many years, and I think this one can work.
Chronicle writer Max Landis did an interview recently discussing the status of Chronicle 2 and addressed earlier reports that suggested Fox Studios didn't like his first draft of the script. Landis responded to that report by saying the following: "The report came out that they didn't like my script. They liked my script. It's just a really dark script. The question is more of how do we all compromise to get something we want? And that's an incredibly slow process." John, buy or sell a dark Chronicle 2?
Well, when you look at the first Chronicle movie, which was one of the most pleasant, biggest surprises to me, because I was, like most of you, I was sick and tired of the found footage movies. I wasn't really all that keen on it, but Chronicle was a brilliantly done film. I love that movie. And really, when you step back and look at it and see how it develops and how the villain becomes the villain, it is a dark story already. I mean, Chronicle is a dark story. And moving forward, the fact that Landis wants to keep going that direction is great. Now, look, a lot of people have a problem. I think a lot of people just don't get it. Live in some romance wonderland somewhere that, studios shouldn't interfere with the artist. The artist should just be left alone to do whatever they want to do. And the studio shouldn't be interfering with Landis's script development. Look, that's a nice romantic idea. But here's the problem. Good artists make art from within themselves. They make the things that are an expression of what they're thinking and feeling and seeing and what they do. But a studio has to be concerned with more than that. They also have to be concerned with what do audiences want to see and what will work for an audience. That's not the way an artist thinks. That's not our base thought, is what will the audience buy is what do I want to express? And that's needed and required. But I've always maintained that you need both sides to create great films. The reason I believe George Lucas went off the deep end and made horrible Star Wars prequels is because he no longer had anybody to answer to. Nobody could say no to George Lucas, and nobody could give him any input. It was just him and his thoughts. And what happened then was you had this creative, amazing Hollywood giant of a genius suddenly turn out crap movies. Why? Because he had nobody to answer to and nobody to be a check and a balance. I already said I think Christopher Nolan's worst film, even though I still liked it a lot, but I believe his worst film is Dark Knight Rises. It's his worst movie. And why? Because his power has gotten so big in Hollywood, there are fewer and fewer people who can say no to Christopher Nolan. And I believe that's why that happened. So, I mean, I like the idea that you take the creative genius, and then you balance that out by people who have to bring checks and balances to it, I believe that makes for the best movies. Look, Peter Jackson always talks about the great collaboration that he had with the studio in making the Lord of the Rings films. That's why they turned out so great, because you had his genius checked and balanced with the studio know-how, and they made great cinema, and I believe that's the way it's going to work, and I believe it will work for Chronicle too.
One of the more polarizing comedies of the last 10 years was the Will Forte comedy MacGruber. Most critics and fans didn't like the film, but at the same time it had a very passionate following of those that loved it. Now Forte is claiming that one way or another they are going to make a MacGruber 2 by saying the following: "We are going to make a MacGruber 2 for sure," he says. "Whether we do it with a video camera in our backyards, there will be some form of MacGruber 2. John, buy or sell a making of MacGruber 2?
Sell. This look, there are a lot of little gem comedies, and I love those types of movies that maybe the vast majority of audiences didn't get it, but you did, and you loved it for what it was, blah, blah. MacGruber sucks. I get in my arguments with my friends. I have friends who love this movie. I mean, friends of mine who I respect and who are smarter than I am that love it. But I'm sorry. I watched it the first time. I'm like, what? This isn't funny. I mean, it's ridiculous and silly, but ridiculous and silly can be hilarious. But I'm watching. This isn't funny. Then my friends, no, John, I didn't like it at first either. You got to watch it again. Okay, I watched it again. Not just as crappy as the first time I watched this piece of garbage. It's terrible. I think there might have been 2 scenes that made me crack a smile and giggle, and that's it. I love the skit on Saturday Night Live. But this movie don't make a MacGruber 2. Just don't waste your time. It's terrible. And I know a lot of you love it. A lot of my friends love it. But I just think it's awful.
The upcoming animated film Kung Fu Panda 3 is already in high gear. The film will hit AMC theaters everywhere around Christmas time 2014 and has just added some new voices. According to reports, Bryan Cranston, Mads Mikkelsen, and Rebel Wilson have all signed on to join the cast of the film. John, buy or sell these new actors joining Kung Fu Panda 3?
Sell it. I don't like this. And look, Kung Fu Panda is actually a really entertaining film. I like Kung Fu Panda 2 even more, and I'm really looking forward to Kung Fu Panda 3. And Jack Black actually brought a lot of personality to the lead character. But here's the thing. It's an animated film. Who cares? I mean, I've always kind of been of the mindset that, look, go out and do you know that there are lots of people in Hollywood and in LA who specifically just train to do voice acting for animated films, and they do a great job of it, better than Hollywood actors, because that's not what Hollywood actors are trained for. So you get all these people in Hollywood who are trained voice performers. Get them. Like, how many of you actually realized, oh, that's Angelina Jolie's voice as the tiger in... Nobody knew, and nobody cared. You think that 7-year-old you brought to see Kung Fu Panda 3 cared that was Seth Rogen's voice as the cricket? Or, I can't even remember. Who cares who the other people were? It doesn't matter. So get trained voice actors to do these things. Bryan Cranston, I love Bryan Cranston. Man, he's one of my favorite interviews. Every chance I have to get together with him, I do, because he's awesome. But I don't care that he's doing the voice of an animated character. No, a 7-year-old kid isn't going to know, oh, this is the guy from Breaking Bad as the giant hippopotamus kung fu master. They don't know. They don't care. And it's not like Cranston is a better voice performer than a 20-year trained, animated voice performer. It makes no sense to me. It's just, in general, a philosophy that I just don't get and I just don't like. So, yeah, I'm loving the idea of Kung Fu Panda 3. I can't wait to see it. But I just don't care that you're getting these Hollywood stars to do the voices. All right, folks. Well, listen, that'll do it for Buy or Sell. Now we've come to the point of the show for Mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you would like us to address on the show, email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Send in your questions. Every day we pick a bunch out of the mailbag to address on the show. Maybe you can get yours on air. Ashley's got a bunch of the mailbag questions pulled out, and she's going to read them off. So, Ashley, what do we got?
Dom MX writes, "Hi guys, great show. I was wondering what's the difference between a remake, a reboot, and a reimagining? I've noticed that some people misuse these terms for movies and use them interchangeably, and in doing so, it sometimes confuses me when describing a movie. If you could, please give me an example of each."
Yeah, great question. And I'm guilty of this sometimes too. I will sometimes use reboot, remake, and stuff like that interchangeably, and really they're not. So here's how I would define them. A remake is taking an older movie and redoing it. And redoing it with the same story and with the same plot. So a good example of that would be The Departed, which is based, of course, won Best Picture and is based on my all-time favorite cop film. It's the Asian film I was going to say Inglourious Bastards. That's something very different. Infernal Affairs, based on Infernal Affairs. It's the same story, basically the same characters, basically the same plot line with a few, adjustments here and there. But basically, it's a remake. They took that movie and just remade it again, but basically the same story and everything. A reboot, to me, in my head, at any rate, and maybe different people have different definitions, is more of a, look, take the basic premise, but redo everything else. So a good example of this was The Incredible Hulk. You had that one Hulk film that Ang Lee directed with the Hulk poodles fighting dogs in the trees, and say, okay, we want to do another Hulk film, but let's not remake it. Let's not just make the same movie. Let's reboot it. Let's say, okay, let's do Hulk, but let's start again. Or, for instance, the new Spider-Man. They didn't remake the original Spider-Man movie. They rebooted the franchise. They were starting over.
Kendall Taylor writes, a little bit ago, you said that two major studios would never get together and work on a film, such as Justice League and Avengers team-ups. Recently, there has been talk about Spider-Man being in Avengers 2 and Marvel/Disney sharing characters with Fox/Sony. How would this work? And if it is true, who would take the lead in future movies? Could this also lead into a Civil War movie?
Okay, well, first of all, I never said that two studios would never work on a film together, because they have, and they will in the future. What I did say was I have a very difficult time imagining two studios with two existing franchises working together to bring those franchises together. Because, for example, let's say you wanted to do a Spider-Man who is owned by Sony and Wolverine movie, which is owned by Fox. And let's say that you wanted to put the two of them together. Okay, great. Can you just see the fighting and the arguments that would happen? Wait a minute. In this scene, Wolverine has, like the Sony people saying, in this scene, the Wolverine has better lighting than Spider-Man does. We changed that scene. We want to reshoot that scene. Wait a minute, said somebody from Fox. Spider-Man had a funnier line in that scene. Wolverine should say that line. And each will just be more concerned about making their own character look better. Mm-hmm. And the fighting and the litigation and the arguments, and then we think Spider-Man's a little bit more of a popular character, so we should get 55% of the box office. It would be endless. Now, there was talk, this makes me laugh. There was talk. They really were trying to see if in Avengers, if they could get the Oscorp building, just in the cityscape. Now, Oscorp is of course, a reference in Spider-Man, because Oscorp is there in Spider-Man universe. So they were trying to get, but it's also a very big mainstay in the whole Marvel universe, in the comics. So there was talk about them trying to swing a deal just in the cityscape, in the shot of the city, to see that there's an Oscorp building. Well, they couldn't make the deal happen, and it fell apart, whatever, but they came close to making it work. It amuses me to see how then people took that and ran with it. It's like, wait a minute. They almost had a deal to have Oscorp. That must mean they're really close to putting Spider-Man in the Avengers. No, it's two really, really, really different things. Those are monstrously different things. That's like saying, oh, look, there's a picture of me with Russell Crowe. That must mean Russell Crowe is going to star as John Campea in his life story in the movie. No, it doesn't. There's two completely worlds apart different things. Making an agreement to have a building in a background versus having Spider-Man in the Avengers, no, that hasn't happened. I don't see that ever happening. Just because, unless through some twist of the universe, Sony loses the rights to Spider-Man, which I don't think they're ever going to allow to happen. If Sony ever lost the rights to Spider-Man and Marvel was able to get them back, then you'd see a Spider-Man Avengers. But as long as they're owned by two different studios, I just can't see it ever happening.
Samuel E. writes, I'm a fan of the show. Thanks for putting out great content. I'm a big DC Comics fan, even if they're having a hard time putting a few movies together. I feel that Christopher Nolan rushed the Batman stories way too fast. He had the biggest character with the biggest and most interesting stories, and pretty much did nothing with it. Yeah, he is a great director, but he could have pumped out more than 3 great trilogies with the Batman character. But instead, he closed the book way too early, and now we have to go back to square one. I believe that a director/fan of the character would give it more justice because this guy barely touched the stories he could have had. Just wanted to know your thoughts.
Thanks a lot for the email, Samuel. But Samuel, oh, sweet Samuel. My friend, Christopher Nolan did nothing with the Batman movies? Really? Dark Knight was nothing? It's one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. And he did nothing? Batman Begins was awesome. He did nothing. And while I was disappointed with it, he made a really good movie with The Dark Knight Rises. He did nothing? Come on. I mean, look, maybe you were frustrated. And I know it's a lot of comic book characters. They want to see their particular favorite story, or their particular favorite this brought to the screen. If they don't, they get a little bit disappointed. And I get that. I'm with you there. But let's not go crazy and say that Christopher Nolan did nothing with the Batman franchise. He clearly did an awful lot. And he is a fan of Batman. And he did great stuff. But I got to tell you, I agree with Christopher Nolan on this. I agree. Look, he made his trilogy, his Batman story. And I think it's okay to now let a new filmmaker come in and have a new version of that character. I don't think we want to see the same Batman 20 times in a row. And maybe there's some of us who do, but I think overall this is good for the character. I think it's good for the franchise to say, okay, the Christopher Nolan Batman films are now done. Christopher Nolan wants to move on and do other things. Christian Bale wants to move on and do other things. Now let's start again. We have a chance to start a new kind of vision of Batman. I think this is a good thing, and I think it's healthy for everybody involved, including us as audience members. And I don't think you need to sign on and do 20 films with the same characters. I mean, maybe that could work, maybe not. But I'm happy with the way things are, and I'm happy with the way it played out, and I'm happy that Christopher Nolan closed his book off. Personally, that's my opinion. But I'm glad you enjoy the character so much, and I can't wait to see what they do with Batman next.
Greg Pasco writes, Salutations, guys. I'm a big fan of the show and I watch it every day. But my question is, I have heard blogs and other podcasts discuss how DC/Warner Brothers should map out their cinematic universe, and most of them brought up the idea of a world's finest film before a Justice League film. I, for one, think it's a wonderful idea, even though it's a smaller step for a DC/Warner Brothers. It's also a huge leap for them as well. They could use the film to unveil other characters, and you can never go wrong with Bats and Soups teaming up. Your thoughts on a world's finest film before a JLA movie?
Thank you for the question. So, a movie with Superman and Batman teaming up, also involving and introducing other characters. Yeah, it's called Justice League. And I've always maintained, look, I believe that, and I've said this before, that Warner Brothers and DC need to go the opposite direction that Marvel and the Avengers did. Whereas the Avengers started with all individual films building up to the Avengers, I believe that DC needs to go the opposite direction, actually. Start with a Justice League movie where you have your heavy hitters and popular characters like Batman and Superman, along with these other characters that we have not introduced to the movie-going public yet, whether it's a Flash or a Wonder Woman or whoever else. And you allow them to get recognized and become popular with the fan base because you got Batman and Superman there. And then you can do spin-off movies. Then you can have Wonder Woman in her own film. Then you can have Flash in his own film and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of believe, I have been dying for years to see a Batman versus Superman movie. What? Or a World's Finest. I just don't think, for the purposes of trying to get these other characters established with the movie-going audience, I just don't think starting with the World's Finest is the way to go. I do think that the way to go is to start with Justice League. Get your heavy hitter characters, make the other characters popular so they can go on and have individual films, and then do a much bigger Justice League 2. I still really believe that is the correct way for them to go.
Elliot Mason writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Keep up the awesome work. I heard some rumors going around, courtesy of some tweets by Kick-Ass 2 actor Morris Chestnut, about possibly being up for the role of Black Panther and that he might appear in Avengers 2. Do you think there's any legitimacy to this? And do you think he fits the role of BP? If not, who would you like to see don the black suit? Michael Jai White, perhaps?"
Elliot, I'm so glad you mentioned that at the end. Whenever I think of Black Panther, the only guy I can think of is Michael Jai White. That is the only guy I can think of. I love this dude. As a matter of fact, I was actually at the world premiere of Black Dynamite. And I had a chance to actually sit down while we were there at the ArcLight in Hollywood and chat a little bit. And we actually brought up Black Panther. And he actually told me he's always wanted to play Black Panther. And I'll tell you, look, and the big advantage he has over a guy like Morris Chestnut is that Michael Jai White is a legit high-level martial artist. He's totally legit. And he's awesome. He's great. And he's so fun on screen, too. Like, if you haven't seen Black Dynamite, I'm not talking about the cartoon show, the movie Black Dynamite, watch it. It is so freaking hilarious. And Jai White is so good in it. When I think of Black Panther, and I got to say this, though. I don't think Marvel has plans for Black Panther and Avengers 2. They've already got a lot going on with Avengers 2. We've got Guardians. You got all the original characters. Plus, you got some Guardians of the Galaxy getting mixed in there. I believe they're going to have Ant-Man in it to set him up for his Phase 3 Ant-Man standalone movie. Much like I was saying DC needs to do with their characters, I believe they're going to introduce Ant-Man in Avengers 2 so that he can then go and do his individual film once we get into Marvel Phase 3. I believe there's talk of Doctor Strange as well as a Phase 3 movie, so they may want to introduce him a little bit in Avengers 2. So it's getting really crowded really fast. But I would be shocked if Marvel doesn't already have a script and is already planning for Black Panther in Phase 3. I just don't think we're going to see it in Avengers Part 2. Well, listen, folks, that'll do it for us. We've gone overtime. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, while I've got you, hold what you're doing. Click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube show. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk program. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And go out and see a movie tonight. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all your theater and showtime and, of course, movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this show or any of our episodes, look in the description of this video and you'll find links to our iTunes and Stitcher Radio so you can listen to us on your way to work. And once again, click that subscribe button. I want to thank, as always, my lovely host, Miss Ashley Mova.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
And thank you to you guys. Listen, the most important part of the show is not what I have to say. That's irrelevant and probably wrong. It's what you have to say. Make sure you jump down into the comment section below and leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we talked about here today. So until tomorrow, thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campia for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.